Good afternoon, everybody. This is the last session for me today. Actually, no, I have one more. Key takeaways. This is a session all around operationalizing AI, from the trenches to the promised land. Thank you, first of all, to the panel for your participation, not just in this panel, but QBITS as a whole. For me, AI is one of the most exciting moments of my career, just in terms of what we're able to do today with this technology. Sometimes I think that we're kind of losing that human connection in terms of how we operate from day to day, but QBITS is one of these events that really kind of drives home just how important it is to come together as specialists in our industry and really build those connections, create that human connection that is so important in what we do. Technology is ever evolving, is so it's evolving so rapidly, but at the same time, this type of event is so important for us to continue to build the partnerships and relationships that we have. So, first of all, thank you everybody. I think everybody should give yourselves a round of applause for the participation that you've So, without further ado, first of all, guys, I'd like for you to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about what your role is in your organisation, and then I have some questions for you. So, Bill, over to you.
Yeah, I'm Bill Samblin from the International Group, and based on the presentation this morning, I love my job. And a big reason I love my job is AI, because we've had a lot of success. We're a wax manufacturer. We start off with crude out in the west of in Salt Lake. It comes across, and we've got a plant south of Buffalo, and that's where kind of my IA story will go about, but it's been really good for us.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. The next gentleman on the panel, I grew up with this man. I've known Ian for 30 plus years. We come from a small village in the UK, Catsill. Probably the first time you're ever going to hear that at this conference, Ian. But Ian, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm Ian Stockley. I'm the Director of IT for an organisation called AKG in the UK. We specialise in working with people with disadvantages, getting them into work. We also have a skills and learning element to that as well. 12 months ago, we made an acquisition in Canada, so I've got some of my colleagues here, and I was kind of introduced to QuadBridge by Jamie, and we set up AKG Canada, so now we have a presence in British Columbia as well. So that's a little bit of history and a little bit back.
Awesome, thank you, Ian. And my friend, Town.
Town Creator with HP. I do love my job as well. I look after our commercial PC product team, and as my daughter said, you get to play with products. So I do love my job as well.
I also love my job. I love my job so much, and I love my team. Some of my team are actually here today to support. So thank you guys. You guys are amazing, and you play such an amazing role in what we do as an organisation. So, Bill, first question to you. Can you give us some insights into what are the most significant challenges you faced in turning AI pilots into scalable, production-ready solutions, and any hard lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I'll quickly go through the story and where it's really worked out well for us. The AI that we're using is machine learning, and the stuff that we're doing would work in any company that basically manufactures liquids, whether it's food, mining, pulp and paper. In our case, it's petroleum byproduct wax, and we bring in a product that's wax-based. It goes into a tower, gets heated up, and it gets separated into wax. And 5 years ago, we had 8.5% waste. And using machine learning, and a lot of the work was getting the data. Everybody always talks, get the data right. We use a system called Pi, it's a historian that gathers the data off the PLCs, and then we had to do a bunch of work to get it the way we wanted, clean the data, work with it. And then we ran it through a machine learning piece of software, and it came back and gave us some suggestions on some things to try. One was changing one of the major temperatures, got the okay from the plant people, and we changed it. So we brought this waste down from 8.5% to 5% the next year. That was worth over $10 million in free wax, so basically went right to the bottom line. We've now got that down to 3%, and that's about $20 million. So that's kind of where I was when I talked about this last year, which was huge. Since then, we've gone out to our refinery out in Salt Lake City, which is only 10,000 barrels. It's a small refinery. So if I was working for Exxon or something like that, I mean, the numbers would be times 10 or 20, where they do 300,000 to 400,000 barrels a day. But anyways, we've been working on the crude tower there, and we're starting to make some gains there as well. They're not as big, but it takes time. It really does take time, because the machine learning will suggest, why don't you turn up this pressure, turn down this temperature, and you try it. And if that works, then you run the data again. But you need to then run some more data, you have to do more variations, and then you find it again. So it's not like bang. It's even like that first thing where we've gotten down to 3%. That took us 4 years, because you just keep refining it, and it takes time to create data. You need 300, 400, 500 hours of data running one way and then another way to find it. But at the end of the day, we're probably up to close to $25, $30 million, and still room for another 15 or 20 before we're done. But it's all about your data, getting it there, and then staying at it.
That's impressive. That's a great story. No, that's exactly how how powerful this type of technology is, and props to you. You just made wax very sexy. Ian, so bridging the talent gap. So can you give us your take on operationalizing AI, which obviously requires kind of a unique blend of domain knowledge, data science expertise, I'd imagine, and IT skills. How do you approach building or sourcing these cross-functional teams?
I guess in the first instance, we don't start with technology. So we'll work, I'm fortunate enough to have a business analyst in my team, and they would work with operations or understand where the problem is, work with the subject matter experts in that particular area. So typically that's somebody or some people from operations that really understand the business. Then we would get involved, start to look at what we think the potential solution would be using AI. And depending on the complexity of that, then we'll either look to do that in-house. So when we're looking at no-code or low-code solutions, potentially using tools like Power Automate, OpenAI, etc., and to some degree machine learning, then we'll develop that in-house. We'll work with our compliance team and our InfoSec team. We do a lot of work with government, Department of Work and Pensions in the UK. So there are strict guidelines, so we just make sure that we remain compliant, remain secure in the solutions. If it's a more complex solution we're looking for, we would then, we have a preferred AI partner in the UK, Hudson & Hayes, who we work with. They're a relatively small organisation, but specialising in the sector we're in. So we'll bring them in, and we'll then look to build the product. Then we go through a phase of user acceptance testing. So again, working very closely with ops at the front, ops in the middle, doing the user acceptance testing. And then when we feel that we've got a solution or product that we're ready to go back to the business with a solution, then we'll involve our L&D team to look at training that out then to the organisation. So there's lots of technical elements to this, but it's about engagement with the business and making sure that you're bringing the right stakeholders in right at the outset and doing it with rather than to. And that's the approach we've taken for a lot of the projects that we've done.
And so it's kind of a niche AI firm that's they have a good understanding of your type of industry?
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to, the organisation that we work with, a number of their partners are actually from the sector, so they've worked in similar organisations to the one that we work with. So we kind of found that we could hit the ground running. There wasn't so much an education process with them. They understood that. They understood our needs. They understood, I guess, the clients that we work with, etc. And we were able to leverage their expertise as well as ours.
Well, so I will get to you, Tom, but I also want to ask the same to you, Bill, because I know that you're working also with an AI provider. Could you just give us a bit of information on that?
Yeah, so it's kind of totally different for us. The provider that I found was on an online conference during COVID, so no one was going, and happened to find it was a West Coast conference. I was lucky, I stayed up and watched it. But their niche was marketing. They'd never done anything like what we did with them, but they have the machine learning. And now, yeah, they're selling to lots of manufacturers and all that stuff. It's probably their new hotspot is what it is. So in our case, I'm in the product analytics, and they were marketing. So it was brand new for them, but the learning was quick. It was within weeks that we had the first gains and said, let's try this, and all of a sudden we're on to something. And yeah, the story just continues. To work with them.
Start small, leverage the expertise externally, and then obviously build upon that, I would imagine. So, excellent. So Taryn, achieving ROI is one of our favourite subjects. How do
That's
we,
an easy question.
right? Taryn, how can HP help clients achieve ROI with so many organisations obviously struggling with demonstrating clear returns on their AI investments? What strategies do you recommend and quantify and communicate the value that AI brings?
Well, I just want to recognize the two gentlemen here. This is a prime example of AI use cases already. This is oftentimes I ask, is anyone using AI, or how do you use AI? This is two perfect examples. But to answer your question, I'm going to steal shamelessly because Stephen, probably from our security specialist, he had a session at 1. And there's a line that he said there that really resonated with me, is it's looking for the silent killers in the organization. And what I mean by that is, when you think of the environment we're all in now, we're deploying remotely to different offices, different branches, different machines, different devices. But after all, there's always silent killers, a bottleneck that cause a lot of tickets, a lot of expense to the AI. And having a tool to identify that is really key, and that's why our workforce solutions that we started developing several years ago, it's now launched this month. So it allows you to track your fleet in terms of what's impacting the most tickets, the most pain points, the silent killers. And that's really what we're trying to emphasize, is looking for that bottleneck, causing down costs. So that's ultimately what HP is trying to do, helping you. Not that it's easy, but because everyone's that's using AI personally, what's the point of this? Why am I, from the own personal ROI. But really for us, we're focusing organizational, which is the side. Yes. Not my line, Stephen's line, but I'll steal it.
I love it. And that's it, right? It's how do you lower the noise so that you can focus on bigger and better things and build more intelligent solutions and leverage that technology. So that's it's very interesting. And this is a question to all three of you. We'll start with you, Taryn. Can you share specific examples of how your organisation has successfully operationalized AI?
Well, I would successfully, what I would say is, it's not forcing it. I've seen our organization, multiple organizations, when you try to force the use of AI, it becomes a hard barrier, because then it becomes more of a nuisance. Do I have to try this and this? What I would say is, you have to really promote, share best practices. Having the comfort to have someone going, I'm using AI in this way, because there's more than one good ways to do it. Because we're all learning this as a journey. When you're allowing that foster culture of just sharing best use cases and best practices, there's less of a fear or an intimidation of, well, I better use this or I'll lose my job type of mentality. Because that's the danger right now that organizations trying to think about. It's more of forcing that culture versus allowing it to cultivate in a better environment. That's just the way I view it.
Same question to you, Ian. Successfully operationalizing things.
Yeah, so we've been on a journey, and obviously there's a number of initiatives that we've launched. I'll just talk about a couple of those and where we've seen some success. So I guess the first one was, I mentioned that we work with a lot of participants who are long-term unemployed, and they come to us with lots of different barriers. That may be from substance abuse to homelessness, etc. So we do go on a journey with those people. We only meet with them once every 2 weeks, and we have an hour with those people. And After they've had their session with us, then we send them feedback to complete. And what we've started to do with AI is there's a series of normal kind of customer satisfaction kind of surveys they complete, and also we're allowing them to leave free text feedback as well. But what we've leveraged with AI is we're analysing that feedback and started to understand the risks associated with that particular participant, whether or not we think they need additional mental health support, whether or not that there are any safeguarding issues, so we have a duty of care with the participants who work with us. So we're kind of identifying that through a trained LLM, and then we're signposting that to our safeguarding teams or to the relevant support function. And we're able to do that near on real time, where previously that would have been a manual job for employees to kind of cut through that, and that might take a number of days. And obviously, in real time, we can, if we do identify issues, we can really interact with those participants quickly, and time matters. So that's a good example.
That's a great story. That's AI for the good, right? That's exactly what we're looking for. So amazing, thank you. And Bill?
For us, it was kind of easy because we hit the grand slam with the first thing with the machine learning. So then it became, what do you do with the rest of the plants? And in fact, when I came back from QBITS last year, I even saw the people are doing video and some of the chat stuff and all that, and I brought it back to my steering team, and they said, I think one of the CEOs, we had two of them, was like, I'm not against technology, though, but go do what you're doing, stay with that, right? We don't need to do any more right now. And there's a level of change, right? And I think I'm still another 8 or 9 months left to kind of get the machine learning and what we're doing in the plants going, but then we'll start to look at some of the others. And I'm interested in people's stories to hear. I'm not looking for 30, 40 million, but what are people spending 100,000 and getting 300,000 back, that kind of stuff? Because you don't hear a lot of where that is. I mean, everybody's talking, like in the talks so far, let's do some AI, do AI, but maybe those stories are still coming, I don't know. And in terms, just a little bit on the ROI, if you're a manufacturing plant and you have liquids, go home and do a calculation. If you were to get 1% more yield or 1% less waste, there's your ROI. You're going to have tons of money to justify your project.
Yeah, powerful stuff, powerful stuff. Bill, unseen obstacles. So what are some of the unexpected barriers, organizational, technical, or ethical, perhaps, you've encountered while operationalizing AI, and how have you addressed them?
Yeah, I guess because we're basically working with machines and stuff, there's not a lot of ethical in what you're doing to the wax. You're basically, in our case, changing knobs that are adjusting pressures and temperatures and flows. I think there's still a challenge is that we now have in the plants that we're doing a screen there, it's a Power BI screen that shows hour by hour how they're running the product, what the targets are to do the different, let's say there's 4 or 5 recommendations, those are in graphs and they're supposed to follow them along. So if they're not following, the graphs turn red and all that kind of stuff, so it's made very easy for supervisors to make sure that they are following what they're supposed to be doing. So I guess the change management, that was a big part because a lot of the operators have done things for 30 years and this was on a second thing that we were working on. There was something we were trying to get it on spec and it would take 30 hours. And we realized with the machine learning that the first 20 hours was a waste of time. That if they would move to the next stage, we could save 20 hours. And that's a unit that's on the critical path of our volumes. And once we got them finally to change, it was 6 million pounds of more wax we could produce on that unit. So there's an additional to the other stuff. But some of the guys, they would go back and do it the old way all of a sudden. We'd be doing it the right way, and they I think we got to do it the old way, right? So it's just people and change management as you're doing it. I mean, you give them a tool, you need them to use it, and it takes time.
And did you kind of encounter any sort of concern from the workforce that I'm going to be replaced here? Is this the end of me? Any pushback or anything there?
We didn't, not so far in this because we were just a tool and telling them run this way. Right now, could we eventually have less operators and a central control and have the PLCs controlling it? We could. We haven't decided to do that at this point. One of the challenges with this particular plant, when things go wrong, they need kind of all the people that are there. So it's, I'm not sure when the robotics are going to take care of that when there's a major problem. So for now, everything's fine. Soon. Okay.
Well, I don't know if anybody saw the 50th birthday of Microsoft, and they had a co-pilot interviewing Bill Gates, Satya, and Steve Ballmer. Yeah, that interview was way better than mine, that's for sure. So maybe next year you might find that it's actually a co-pilot of some sort, holding a much more, right? Yeah, we'll give it the accent. But the best bit about that, I think, was that the AI or the co-pilot, it kind of brushed off Steve Ballmer. It was like, yeah, whatever, Steve, we'll move on to the next question. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Ian, so AI and human collaboration, and I think this really resonates with what you guys do, but how do you see the dynamic between AI systems and human workers evolving, especially in the context of operationalizing?
I think going back to the keynote this morning about we love our jobs. I think there are a lot of elements that we don't enjoy in our jobs, and I'm going to go back to the frontline services that we provide, and the employment coaches who work for us dealing with the participants who join our programs. They're there because they're passionate about working with people, developing people and bringing them closer to the labour market and ultimately into a sustainable life. What they don't enjoy doing is the admin elements of that, the paperwork, all the bureaucracy that goes with it. I mentioned that they have an hour every 2 weeks with that participant. Now, if they're spending all of their time having to fill in forms, etc., that's a lot of wasted time. And so the way that I see that AI will work, for us it's not about replacing. I think it's about displacing some of those tasks that are of low value. So we're working on a number of initiatives now. One of the things we're looking at is using, rather than filling in forms, having natural conversations, transcribing those, and then integrating with the CRM. So although the job coach will have the screen in front of them, that's being populated through a conversation rather than a keyboard, and just steering that conversation and really getting the maximum value out of that time. So I think it is about, as I said, it's really about those repetitive tasks, doing the heavy lifting, etc. If we can automate some of that and give people back the time. So for us, our ROI is giving time back to our staff so they can do the job that they love doing.
Yeah, quite a great example again of how we can use this type of technology to really improve what we're doing. Not necessarily replace us, but actually enhance us. And I think that's really where we're heading. It's the ultimate kind of enhancement of how we can really operationalize everything we do, tap into that kind of AI technical aspect of improvement, continuous improvement, continuous learning on how we're doing things, right? I'm a bit of a geek. Sometimes I like to kind of play around with the latest and greatest sort of AI tools and whatnot. Notebook LM, although it's been out for some time now, but another great example of how you can kind of take content, take information, access different sources of data. It could be white papers on a particular subject, load that into Notebook LM, and then ultimately create kind of a podcast kind of content that you can then absorb. Sometimes I'm driving home and I'm listening to the works of Shakespeare on a podcast because it's just a great way to consume information. So 5 minutes, thank you. I could go on forever, by the way, on this subject, so you probably will have to stop me. In fact, maybe we do take a slight step back and open it up to the audience if anybody has any questions for any of the panel.
Hi, so this is going to be for mostly, feel free to hop in. So, A, respect for what you guys do as a business. I work slightly differently. So our firm, for example, we do critical infrastructure, power lines, hydro dams, etc., etc. But you and I both have a similar problem in the sense that our AI-based data can't eat. So you have very sensitive information about specific beings that you're processing with an LLM. How are you managing that on that perspective?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and that was a real challenge for us. And I said when we're putting together we're initially setting out the team that work on our AI projects. We bring in compliance and we bring in InfoSec, and it's exactly for that reason. And we do have to work within the constraints of our commissioners, etc. So what we're actually doing is we are the data that we're providing and processing through AI, that's anonymised. So there's an anonymisation that takes place, and that's governed by our funders in a lot of instances. The exciting thing that I've learned, I think, from QBITS and certainly from yesterday was we're going to start to see local processing through Copilot Plus, etc. So I think that we're somewhat constrained in what we can do at the moment because there's a lot of nervousness around personal data, passing that to LLMs. I think that we're entering into a phase where we can start to really offer assurances that it is localised. So I think it's going to open things up slightly more, and I think we'll have more freedom to be able to open that. That's the big takeaway from me from the last 2 days. I think.
We were talking about,
Yeah, we were.
I mean, that's a great question. Even if it couldn't even be more perfect.
Yeah, we're gonna get you up here next.
Yeah. So the reason why it's a great question is if you think of where it is a year ago to where it is now, is I'll take oil and gas and tell you for example. Some of the companies are already. You have to think remote offshore drilling and what. And the time it takes to use an LLM or a domain-specific LLM that requires online satellite tracking would just cost forever. They're already building specific vectors of loading, millions of manuals to that company that doesn't require online connection access to it. That's from an organizational history. But him and I were talking before this, where the industry is going from a personal device usage this year, next year, is the local impact. Local impact being, for us, we're already about to launch this summer our own local on-device LLM. It requires a 32 gig system from memory, but all the query, all the file, all the function is staying within that partition of the drive. So that's a local and not security risk network. That's a personal. And then Microsoft, which does a really good job promoting the industry, where they're going to be triggering the tipping point of this. Copilot being local or cloud hybrid is big because it's always been on the cloud. Copilot. So companies have said to me, this is not in any disrespect. I've even been in meetings that ask how to turn AI off. And that's a true thing, because it's not to disrespect, it's out of fear of using it from a data to what these 2 points are. And that's, the local part is a big part of the solution.
I think it's too late to turn it off.
Yeah.
There's no going back. There's no going back.
Okay, guys, we ran out of time. We have one.
Okay. Talwyn, I do want to answer this one because
Is this on? Yeah. Given HP's focus on AI at the edge and the development of AI-powered devices, what are some of the key challenges and opportunities you see in bringing AI capabilities directly to end-user devices? If you could just kind of, because this is really an interesting switch for me, or move.
I'll say it in a short time manner. We're so used to input versus output. For what we know now, we type something in a phone, whether it's different LM models on phone, we're inputting a prompt. Prompt is the biggest thing right now, and we're expecting an output to that prompt. Where the benefit I really think, and there was a question that was asked outside of all of these, when do we see the euphoria of AI? It really gets to the point where it's not as in your face, it's working in the background as you experience. So I'll give you an example where really I think where the industry is going, including HP, is that you'll turn on your PC, your device, your troubleshooting shouldn't have to be you troubleshooting, but it'll troubleshoot for you. or a better example is you're using a pixel camera on your iPhone, on your smartphone or phone. Right now, it's prompting you, do you want to do these edits, do you want to do background removal? Eventually, it's going to get to the point where it's working for you without you having to input the prompt or expecting output of the prompt. And that's really where I think technology trend is going, for more of an experiential background usage without so much being in your face.
Well, and I think that is where we wrap up and kind of think about that. Is that the promised land, right? Is that the promised land? Thank you everybody for taking the time to join this session. I really enjoyed this subject, and I'm really very happy that I was able to connect with these gentlemen here. Enjoy the rest of the day. We'll have a great session or a great evening planned ahead of us. Most of all, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you to our customers. Thank you to our partners. And thank you to the internal team that obviously worked so hard to make this event so great. So again, thank you all.